I wanted to talk about how asymmetrical transfer is a type of interaction. Now, within subjects design, asymmetrical transfer is an interaction between an independent variable and the order of conditions. If you have an interaction between the independent variable and the order of conditions, like we see here, then you have asymmetrical transfer in your data set. Let's go over this example on the screen to help us understand why asymmetrical transfer is a type of interaction. This study is a taste test study in which each participant is tasting orange juice and rating it, and is also tasting milk and rating it. Each participant is tasting both drinks, so this is a within subjects design. This study has one independent variable, which is type of drink, and the two levels are orange juice and milk. We have an orange juice condition and a milk condition. Two participants were assigned to the A-B order. These two participants tasted orange juice at time 1 and rated it, and tasted milk at time 2 and rated it. The other two participants were assigned to the B-A order. These two participants tasted milk at time 1 and rated it, and tasted orange juice at time 2 and rated it. So these two participants had orange juice first and milk second. These two participants had milk first and orange juice second. We can see that the two participants who were assigned to the A-B order gave high ratings to the orange juice, but gave low ratings to the milk. The reason why they gave low ratings to the milk is because they had orange juice first, and after drinking orange juice, the milk didn't taste good. And since the milk didn't taste good, these two ratings at time 2 ended up being low, and the mean of these two ratings ended up being low. The two participants who were assigned to the BA order had milk first, so they gave high ratings to the milk. They gave high ratings to the milk because they were drinking the milk first, and the milk tasted fine because they hadn't had any orange juice before drinking the milk. When these two participants tasted the orange juice at time 2, they also gave high ratings to the orange juice because the orange juice tasted fine. The taste of the orange juice wasn't affected by having milk at time 1. If you drink milk first and then drink orange juice second, the milk won't affect the taste of the orange juice very much. So these, since these two ratings were low, and this mean was low right here, there was a pretty steep drop-off from this orange juice mean to this milk mean right here. It drops off by 3.5. But when we look at the two participants who were assigned to the BA order, there's a little bit of a drop-off from the orange juice mean to the milk mean, but it's not very much of a drop-off. It only drops by 0.5. That's because when these two people had the milk at time 1, and the milk tasted fine. Since this drop-off right here is a larger drop-off, and this drop-off down here is smaller, we have an interaction between type of drink and the order of conditions. This AB line is connecting these two means in the top row. It's connecting the mean of orange juice at time 1, which is 4.5, with the mean of milk at time 2, which is 1. So here's 4.5, and here's 1. There's a pretty steep drop-off going from 4.5 down to 1. This BA line is connecting the mean of orange juice at time 2 with the mean of milk at time 1. It's connecting the two means of 4.5 and 4, which isn't very much of a drop-off. It's only going down by 0.5. So the two lines are not parallel, and we have an interaction. We have an interaction between the independent variable, which is type of drink, and the order of conditions. You can see that when the participants drank orange juice first and milk second, they rated the orange juice much more highly than the milk. But when the participants drank milk at time 1 and orange juice at time 2, they rated the two drinks about the same. That's why there isn't very much of a drop-off here. Since we have this interaction in our data set, we can see that we have asymmetrical transfer in our data set. When you have asymmetrical transfer in your data set, like we have here, then the overall difference between the mean of condition 1 and the mean of condition 2 will be skewed. It'll either be exaggerated or it'll be shrunken down. In this study, the difference between the mean of the 4 orange juice ratings and the mean of the 4 milk ratings was exaggerated because these two low ratings up here brought down the mean of the 4 milk ratings, and that created a larger difference between the means of the two conditions. So whenever you have asymmetrical transfer in your data set, then your study is actually confounded. You have a carryover effect that confounds the difference between the means of the two conditions. In this case, the study is confounded because the milk condition is suffering from a carryover effect at time 2, but the orange juice condition isn't suffering from a carryover effect at time 2, which means that the milk condition had an unfair disadvantage in this experiment. One way we could have prevented asymmetrical transfer in this study is to have a longer break between conditions. If these two participants had a longer break between drinking orange juice and drinking milk, then there would be enough time for the orange juice to wear off, and then the milk would have tasted fine at time 2. I wanted to go over another example of an experiment that would be affected by asymmetrical transfer. This is an experiment with a tutoring condition and a no tutoring condition. Each participant in this experiment took a certain exam 2 times, 1 time with tutoring and 1 time with no tutoring. This experiment is within subject's design because each participant went through both the tutoring condition and the no tutoring condition. This experiment only has one independent variable, which is just whether or not tutoring was provided. The first level is tutoring, and the second level is no tutoring. 2 of the participants were assigned to the A-B order. These 2 participants took the exam with tutoring at time 1 and with no tutoring at time 2. 2 of the participants were assigned to the B-A order. These 2 participants took the exam with no tutoring at time 1 and with tutoring at time 2. We can see that when a participant is assigned to the A-B order, they do well on the exam at time 1 because the tutoring is helping them, and they do pretty well on the exam at time 2 because the tutoring is still helping them. Once a participant has been tutored, they can't be untutored. We can see that when a participant is assigned to the BA order, they do more poorly on the exam at time 1 because they've never been tutored, but they do pretty well on the exam at time 2 because now the tutoring is helping them. The mean of these 2 exam scores and the mean of these 2 exam scores are the same. The reason why the 2 means are the same is because these 2 exam scores are benefiting from the tutoring at time 1, and these 2 exam scores are also benefiting from the tutoring that happened at time 1. The line connecting these 2 means is flat. This AB line is flat because it's connecting this mean of 87.5 with this other mean of 87.5. These 2 means are further apart because these 2 exam scores benefited from the tutoring that happened at time 2, but these 2 exam scores didn't benefit from any tutoring because these 2 participants went through the no tutoring condition first. So this BA line is connecting these 2 means right here. It's connecting the mean of 87.5 with this mean of 72.5. We can see an interaction here because we can see that the 2 lines are not parallel. When we look at the 2 participants who are assigned to the AB order, we don't see any effective tutoring because the mean of these 2 exam scores is equal to the mean of these 2 exam scores, and the line is flat. When we look at these 2 participants who are assigned to the BA order, we do see an effect of tutoring because the mean of these 2 exam scores is higher and the mean of these 2 exam scores is lower. That's why this line drops down. So this experiment has asymmetrical transfer, which is why we see an interaction between the independent variable and the order of conditions in this graph. I said that if an experiment has asymmetrical transfer, then the difference between the mean of condition 1 and the mean of condition 2 is confounded. I said that the difference between the two means will either be exaggerated or it'll be shrunken down. In the taste test study, the difference between the means was exaggerated because the two milk ratings that were low brought down the mean of the 4 milk ratings and created a larger difference between the means of the two conditions. In this experiment, the difference between the means of the two conditions is actually shrunken down because these two exam scores up here are pretty high, because even though there was no tutoring at time 2, these two exam scores benefited from the tutoring that happened at time 1. And these two high exam scores are bringing up the average of the 4 no tutoring exam scores in this column. Since these two exam scores are bringing up this average, the difference between these two means is shrunken down. It's actually common for asymmetrical transfer to shrink the difference between the means of the conditions. Whenever you're doing a within subjects design with a treated condition and an untreated condition, and the treatment is carrying over from time 1 to time 2, then the participants who are assigned to the A-B order will benefit from the treatment at both time 1 and at time 2. And the participants who are assigned to the B-A order will only benefit from the treatment at time 2, because they're actually getting the treatment at time 2. This can happen in a drug study. If you're doing an experiment in which one condition gets a medication and the other group doesn't get the medication, and you don't have a long enough break between conditions for the medication to wear off, then the participants who are assigned to the A-B order will benefit from the medication at time 1 and at time 2. But the participants who are assigned to the B-A order will only benefit from the medication at time 2 because they're actually getting the medication at time 2. I said that one way to solve the problem of asymmetrical transfer is to have a long enough break between conditions. If you're doing a drug study and you have a long enough break for the medication at time 1 to wear off before the participants get to time 2, then that can solve the problem of asymmetrical transfer. But in some experiments, having a long break between conditions won't help, because sometimes the treatment has a fairly permanent effect. For example, if a participant has been tutored, you would have to have a pretty long break between conditions for the tutoring to wear off. You'd have to have a pretty long break between conditions for a participant to forget everything they learned from the tutoring sessions. If you suspect that you're going to have asymmetrical transfer, and you also suspect that having a break between conditions won't help, it's better to use a between subjects design. So in this tutoring experiment, it would actually be better for me to use a between subjects design, in which I just assign half of the participants to the tutoring condition and half of the participants to the no tutoring condition, and I just test each participant once. For the end of this video, I wanted to talk about one other situation that can cause asymmetrical transfer. If one condition is much more difficult than the other condition, then that can cause asymmetrical transfer of fatigue. If I'm doing an experiment and condition A has a much more difficult task than condition B does, then what's going to happen is condition A at time 1 is going to transfer a lot of fatigue to condition B at time 2, but condition B at time 1 isn't going to transfer much fatigue to condition A at time 2. In other words, a participant who is assigned to the A-B order will experience a lot of fatigue in condition B at time 2, but a participant who is assigned to the B-A order won't experience much fatigue in condition A at time 2. In that experiment, the condition B will have an unfair disadvantage because condition B will suffer from more fatigue at time 2, and condition A will suffer from less fatigue at time 2. In that experiment, you would see asymmetrical transfer in your data set. You would see an interaction between the independent variable and the order of conditions because the AB line wouldn't look the same as the BA line. And in that type of experiment in which one condition is much more difficult than the other condition, it might help to have a long break between conditions so that the fatigue that happened at time 1 will wear off before time 2. But if a long break between conditions won't help, then it's better to use a between subjects design. Like I said, in this tutoring experiment, it would be better to use a between subjects design because even having a long break between conditions probably won't allow enough time for the tutoring to wear off before the participants get to time 2.